Hi, it's Paula from Plantland, and we're here with some of our gardening classes that we're going to do on very specific plants. And today we're going to talk about growing peas. Peas are one of those things that really enjoy our cold Montana weather, our cool Montana weather. It has always been the wisdom that we try to get our peas planted in the ground by St. Patty's Day, which obviously was just this last week. Now, I went out and measured my raised beds, took my raised beds temperature yesterday, and in the center of my raised beds, I'm generally getting about 40 degrees, which is the temperature that pea seeds will actually germinate at. But I don't really trust this next week's worth of weather. I think it's going to be a little unsettled. It's going to get too cold at night to be able to trust that that temperature isn't going to, that soil isn't going to lose all that temperature during the night. So I'm going to cheat a little bit on planting my peas. And what I'm going to do is use the Jiffy Pucks. That's these little peat discs from Jiffy. These are 20 cents each. They're very inexpensive. You put them in water. They puff up. So we go from this to this. Was that too fast? You'll see I've got them in a little Tupperware container. So I'm going to take my pea seeds. And these are shelling peas. And I'm just going to put 2 pea seeds in each hole. And I'm doing 2 because these are a little older seeds and I'm not entirely convinced they'll be viable, although you saw me doing that seed experiment in another video. So I'm just pushing those down. And then I have some pea seeds for, and if both seeds sprout and come up, that's perfectly fine. These are snow peas. Just pushing those down in there. I'm not trying to get light for these to germinate. I'm trying to have heat for these to germinate. So the next thing I'll do with this is I'll pour most of this water out, and then I'll just take and put this whole thing in a plastic bag, seal it shut, and put it in a warm, sunny window. And let these seeds germinate. And it'll probably take a week and a half, maybe as much as 2 weeks for these seeds to germinate. But once they do, I'll put them outside during the day a little bit and bring them in and spend 2 or 3 days doing that. And then I'll plant them in my raised beds, or the beds that have been readied for peas in the garden. And that's going to probably happen within the next 2 weeks. So that's how warm we're getting. One of the things to know about peas is that they're a vining crop, which means they grow up. You have to have something to support them. We sell both trellis netting and also plastic bird netting, which are both just fine to use. You can just take some of this and make a little structure that your peas can grow up on. I grow my peas and beans both in small square-foot wooden boxes that are right next to our wire fence. So that's all the space these peas need. I don't have to put them in a big raised bed. I don't have to put them in a huge pot. So a pot about this size is plenty big enough to grow. What I would do is I would put one of these with the 2 seeds in it, actually 2 of these with the 2 seeds in it, into this pot. And I'm going to bury these about an inch below the surface once I plant these, even though the little plants will be popping up. And this is a plenty big enough pot with potting soil in it, or garden soil that's nice and loose, to put your peas in. Peas, a couple other things to know about peas are, we sometimes use something called inoculant on peas. An inoculant is a bacterial slurry of a sort that we mix up with water, and we soak the pea seeds in it overnight. Now, 2 things to know about inoculant. I used to use it pretty faithfully, but I've kind of stopped doing that because I've had pretty good luck with my peas just germinating and doing just fine. So I've kind of gotten away from using it. You will find lots of garden advice that tells you that it's absolutely necessary to use it. One of the things you should know, though, is that if your pea seeds have been treated with fungicide, the inoculant will be damaged by that fungicide. And the fungicide is, you can look and see that these pea seeds that we sell in bulk have a little bit of a pink tinge to them. And what that pink tinge is that fungicide. And that fungicide is going to just counteract any inoculant that you're using. Now these seeds that I'm using from Botanical Interest, the brand we sell, you can see when I put the two next to each other that Botanical Interest doesn't have fungicide on it. Now the fungicide isn't harmful to you or anything. It has to do with pea storage, the pea seed storage, and it has to do with getting these pea seeds to not rot in the ground when you put them out. So you can see the difference between the two. So I wouldn't worry too much about inoculant if it's me, but you're going to find garden advice that tells you that you should worry about it. Of course, the other thing we should remember is that we need to label these. I didn't do it, but I'm going to try and remember that these are my shelling peas and these are my snow peas. Good luck with that, Paula. If you don't want to use the peat pots, you can always use the little cocoa fiber pots filled with a little bit of damp starting mix. Same idea, you could put it in something like this, put a plastic bag around the whole thing and tie it shut and get those going like that. If you don't want to spend money, you can always use the toilet paper rolls cut in half, filled with starting mix, dampened very well. The thing I don't like about these is they quite often get mold on the outside of them. It's not harmful, it isn't going to hurt your plants, but it can worry people, and it can just seem like it's kind of a nasty thing to have on your house. So peas, a couple other things to know about peas. They will take a small amount of shade. They're not going to grow in full shade, but if you have a site in your garden that gets somewhat less sun than the rest of your garden, peas are a very good choice for that. On our website, we have our handout that talks about what vegetables you can try to grow in shade. When we're talking about growing anything like that in shade, we're talking about just a little bit of shade a day. So if something was full sun in the morning and had some shade in the hottest part of the afternoon, that would be fine for something like peas. The other thing to know about peas is they're a warm weather crop, which means that when we get to the hottest days of summer, when we're starting to get where the nighttime temperatures aren't dipping much below 70, your peas are going to give up the ghost on you. They're done for the season. They're something that likes to be grown in much cooler weather. And growing them in a little bit of shade can help extend that season. It can help keep those roots cool. The other thing is that you can use to keep those roots cool is a little bit of mulch. It's about that more so than it is that the vines are getting too much heat or the vines are getting too much sun. It's that the roots are getting cooked once we get to certain nighttime temperatures. And usually that's sometime in June, beginning of July. Of course, we all know we can get snow in June. And when they get to that point where the vines stop producing, you can go ahead and pull those vines out and put something else in their place. Because I really like radishes, sometimes I'll just take those pea vines out and I'll throw radish seeds in that pot and let those grow on for the rest of the season. Like all your vegetables, it's really important to harvest your peas. Now, for the shelling peas, you need to have the pea pod get big enough that those peas inside look like the kind of peas you would grow in the grocery stores. That's when they're ready to be harvested. You don't want to let them go too far, to get too big or go too far, because those peas will start to get starchy and mealy and they won't taste very good. They're really good when they're just slightly smaller, when they look like baby peas that you buy in the grocery store. And you can usually break open 1 or 2 pods or feel it with your fingers or even hold it up to the sunlight and be able to tell that those peas are getting pretty close to ready. As far as snow peas, you want to harvest those when they're about the size of my index finger, so about this big or so. You're not going to get big giant ones because those are probably going to get, again, kind of starchy and mealy tasting. So you want to harvest them when they're early. It's a good tender early spring crop. It's why we have so many great recipes for spring peas. So that's one of the easier vegetables to grow. And that's about all I have to say about peas this morning. I hope you're all out there getting gardening and doing all kinds of things in your garden to get ready for a great season. This is Paula from Plantland, and happy gardening.